Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the second movie in our um, winter folk horror week. And tonight we're looking at another BFI release, an Irish folk horror called The Outcasts. Now this was made in the 1980s, about 82, and it was been lost for quite a while. There's not many Irish films out there, and this was one of the first sort of Irish sort of like folk horror films. And it's a little bit like the Juniper Tree. It's not a full-on folk horror, but it's got lots of elements of it in there. It was directed by the same director of Blood on Satan's Claw, um, and it just disappeared into obscurity. And it's about a young girl called Moira living in this very sort of harsh part of Ireland, probably once again back in the sort of more medieval times of life. And she lives on a farm with her sisters and her father, and she's bullied quite a lot by other local sort of like young sort of like children, very similar to Blood on Satan's Claw. It does play out very similar to it. Moira's got a little bit of a disability. She's sort of like she's got like a limp and stuff, and she's quite doesn't sort of like talk very much and stuff like that, and she believes all the other tales that the other kids sort of tell her, and she's sort of like a bit sort of not away with the fairies, but she believes in a lot of things that she sees, and the wilderness scares her for some bizarre reason. Um, and she and there's another element of her family where her sister is pregnant by another guy, a farmer, and her dad quite disapproves of it until the priest, the father, and the lad turns up at his house to sort of consummate a marriage arrangement between the pregnant daughter and this lad, and which obviously the dad agrees, and so they prepare for a wedding. And then the wedding takes place, and it's a very sort of very rural wedding, to say the least. It's full of like young and sort of running about and things like this, and we got like a band dressed like wicker men, playing like playing fiddles and stuff like this. And we hear stories of the fiddle man called Scarf Michaels, who supposedly has a cursed fiddle, and if you hear him, your life is cursed, and all things like this happen to you. And at the wedding, that they're all picking on Moira again. At night time, they all go off and they leave her, and then she starts hearing this fiddle, and it's sure enough, Scarf Michaels turns up, or a guy that claims to be Scarf Michaels, and he sort of befriends Moira, and Moira quite likes him, and they go to revenge on the ones that have been tormenting and torturing her, because they've gone off to this building to sort of like have their merry way, should we say. And when they arrive there, when Moira and Scarf arrive, he starts to play his fiddle, and strange things start to happen to them. There's one scene where the girl is sort of like having sex with her lad, and he turns into a goat. Goats are very prevalent again in this film, just like the witch. It's very, very prevalent, and all this sort of things. And he's playing these cursed tunes, and then it comes about that they find out that Moira was with him, and now they're starting to think that Moira is a witch, and she's got this power of putting curses on the the families and stuff like this, because all this bizarre things start happening post wedding. Some families move away, um, and then there's problems at the farms, and a lot of people start to get quite angry with each other. So something has happened at this wedding, and it sort of plays out very similar to blood on Satan's claw. There's no Satan in it though, but it plays out very similar to that. The environment of the film is a very, very main sort of element to this film. And I absolutely really loved it. I really enjoyed it. Yes, it's not a sort of real full-on folk horror, but it's full of old Irish tales and Irish sort of folklore and lots of great sort of fiddle music. And it's very sort of like Irish to the core. And it's filmed really well. Although it's extremely grainy print, it's still really well filmed. And I quite like the grain. I think it adds a sort of extra element of age to the film and puts you into that environment more. And you do feel for Moira. I mean, the characters are cool, and they're quite believable. And because you got the father of Moira's family, it's just her and her sisters. Her mother's long gone, and there doesn't seem to be many sort of wives in this sort of tale. It's more based on the daughters and lads of other families. And yeah, and it's really character based. And you've got this sort of supernatural element going on with Moira and Scarf Michaels, the fiddle man. That sounds so wrong, doesn't it? But when you see it come up, is down as the fiddle man. Jesus. But anyway, it plays out really well and really, really cool. The pluses of this edition, like I said, it's kept its real raw look to the film and very raw. But there is some elements of like really vibrant colours, but in very drab and dull colours. And the contrast, I think, makes the film more striking. The cast play out really well. It's a bunch of unknowns. These are probably might be well known in Ireland and stuff like that, but to us, they're quite unknown. The story's great. It's a really cool story. It's a typical sort of blood on Satan's claw, the witch kind of story. It's got but with loads of sort of Irish folklore in there, and it plays out really cool with a few disturbing moments as the film sort of moves on. It is a 15 certificate due to that, and due to some of the sort of sexual nature going on in the film. Negatives of the film, a lot of people might find it a little bit boring because it's not like a full-on sort of like cursed or folk horror with lots of like sort of cults going on, occults and all this sort of paganism and stuff like this. This is a folk horror based upon Irish folklore. A little bit like the juniper tree, which we looked at last night. I'm going to score it an amazing watch and give it a 9 out of 10. It gets a high score because it was really good and because of its historical interest. Because it has been out of print for many years, it's been lost. This was shown, I believe, once on television in the 80s, and it's been lost since. But it's been rediscovered, restored to a 2K print, and re-released now by BFI. And if you get the initial one, it comes with a booklet, which is really, really cool. So that's cool. The booklet's only limited to the first print of this film. A little bit like the juniper tree, that's the same. That also has a booklet with it. And I just think it plays out really cool because I like films like this. It doesn't have to be full-on horror. It just has disturbing moments in it. And like I said, because it's there's an element of witchcraft in the film, and there's elements of sort of like Irish sort of beliefs, and there's also the goat, and so it's just like great. It ticks all my boxes, and it's brilliant. The Outcasts, 9 out of 10. Any of you guys seen it? I very much doubt it, because like I said, it's been out of print and out of sight and out of mind since the 1980s. So you're looking 30 years plus since anyone's even thought about this film. And then all of a sudden, about a month ago, I saw that BFI were releasing the Outcasts, and I was really excited for it to come out, and I'm so glad to pick it up. Really cool. And that's it then. That's the second one of our folk horror. So the last one we're going to be looking at will be English folk horror film called Starve Acre, and we'll be looking at that on Friday. But until then, please check out some other channels for me. Check out Horror Hands, The Horror Geek, Manby Film, RS Design, Pizzawell, I Am Ice Cat Watches Horror Movies, Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House, and The Maniac. And a massive shout out to the lad. Till next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.